We are mildly interesting guys, and we talk about some stuff. So welcome to the podcast, we call it Joel the Podcast. It's Alex and it's Alex, here for Joel the Podcast. Hello everybody, I'm Alex.
And I'm Alex.
And this is our podcast.
Joel.
Wait, I messed that up.
We take 1 week off.
Honestly, I was so thrown off by the fact that you weren't going to start recording until after I started talking because I forgot that you didn't have to record what I was saying.
Right. I mean...
wow, that might be the first time we just totally botched that. And it was all my fault. Well,
it makes the editing easier. I won't have to try and line it up. I'll
just line it up and everything else will be really off.
It would all be worth it. All right, what I think we should do right here is say Joel together. That way I can line up those Joels and everything else will make sense. So ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, Joel.
Joel. All right.
Oh wow, that you were the delay. You were
right, but that's how I always experienced it. But to me,
I don't like that.
Right.
You do the countdown now.
All right, I'll just say, and this is our podcast like normal.
Why don't we just do the whole intro again and then cut out this beginning part?
Or just don't cut it out and still do the intro again.
All right, let's start over. We're starting the podcast over. Here we go.
Hello, everybody. I'm Alex.
And I'm Alex.
And this is our podcast, Joel. Got it on the first try.
Yep. Flawless.
So welcome to... Are we at episode 40 now? Is that what this is episode 40? Wow.
This is episode 40.
So welcome to episode 40, everybody. Yeah. What a monumental moment in our podcast.
Absolutely.
You've taken a 1 week hiatus. I assume you'll post this a week later, so we'll go a week without posting one. Is that...
Well, since we were like a week and a few days behind posting, I figured I would just post this one in Wednesday. 2 days.
Okay, so I guess
so they won't even notice.
Yeah, except that we've said it like several times already. But
right. So in case you didn't catch that, we didn't record a podcast last week. So this episode was recorded 2 days ago. As of you listening to this, I'm assuming you're listening to this the second it comes out. Right. At midnight Central on Wednesday.
I don't know why anyone would listen to it at another time.
Right. And maybe this helps kind of get us into the cycle of like releasing closer to when we talk about things so that they're more relevant.
Right. So we're not releasing like a podcast in the middle of the coronavirus where it's just completely just us being nonchalant and not even mentioning it.
Right.
And actually, Actually, I want to bring something up because I actually listened to some podcasts, and most of them are like still like releasing episodes from before the coronavirus hit. But like some of them, you can hear like they're trying to do like remote for the first time, and it's like, and they're going through the same things we did, where they're using some kind of like conferencing software, but the audio is kind of crap. So I expect that over time they'll eventually realize what we do,
right?
So we're ahead of the curve.
We're already professionals at this. We
seamlessly
transitioned to our remote coronavirus podcasting routine because it was our remote non-coronavirus
right.
podcasting
By transition routine. You mean just keep doing the same thing.
The easiest kind of transition,
right?
Where nothing changes.
Right, so...
I probably made that joke worse by explaining that bit there, but
yeah,
whatever.
Well, why would people listen to our podcast if we didn't make everything worse by explaining it?
Let's take a second to explain that then, maybe.
I wanna say in the beginning that I'm now in a house with other people, so we get interrupted during this. I apologize, but I'm sure
we could have your entire family as guests.
I don't really think many of them are interested in being guests.
Probably not. This would be an interesting week for them to be a guest. I'll say We'll say that just to get a little hype for our topic this week. But
yeah,
before we get into that, we've still got like 10-15 minutes of intro left. So
right. So, well, especially because the sports update is going to be very long.
Right. Very interesting sports this week.
Right. So, sports update. Literally, I don't know if it was announced the day after, the day of the last podcast when we predicted that the Olympics wouldn't happen. They announced that the Olympics would be postponed to 2021.
It's official.
It's official.
I was right. We're not going to miss out on the Canadians.
Right. So, good job. I don't remember if we predicted that, but if we did, good job us.
We almost certainly did.
I know
Can you imagine us not being right about the future on this podcast?
I literally can't even imagine that. We should just go. We should just go back to the Super Bowl episode and badly edit in the correct scores. Like it's super obviously edited. But yeah, so jury's still out on the rest of the sports seasons. Obviously, they're all still suspended, but no word yet as to whether they'll resume at any point. Although in the last week, I've been discovering all of the roster moves that the Eagles made like 2.5 weeks ago when free agency started. So they signed a cornerback, which was good. I'm happy about that. And they let one of their receivers go who was kind of streaky. So, but there's still plenty of offseason left, so we'll see. Overall, I would say I'm happy so far, but we'll see where it goes. So, yeah, I think that's about all we got in sports.
Yeah.
ESPN has been showing like 2K and Madden and stuff.
That's pretty funny. I, of course, haven't watched any TV because I don't pay for TV. So
right.
I've been watching Community on Netflix.
Yes, I was gonna say that. I'm so happy they finally brought it to Netflix.
It's been on Netflix for a week now?
Something like that.
I'm in the middle of season 3.
Nice. Have you watched it all before?
No, this is my first time.
Oh, it's your first time? Nice.
Yeah, I've seen like years ago, like when it was on TV, my parents watched it, and I like saw 1 or 2 episodes totally out of context or just like chunks of episodes. So I like kind of knew what was going on, and of course I'd seen like stuff on the internet about it as well because it's popular.
Right.
So, but it's been fun. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I think I'll get around to rewatching it soon.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched it on Hulu. I was on Hulu before, but I was so annoyed with the ads. Like I hate the ads.
Yeah.
Very difficult to deal with.
I mean, a couple of weeks ago now, I was catching up on a couple episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine that I hadn't seen yet.
Right.
And, ads.
Yeah.
Ads on a streaming service that somebody is paying for. It's definitely not me. But
yeah, it
unbelievable. Is dumb. It's very dumb.
It's very dumb as we use their service. All right.
Yep.
But yeah, recommend go watch Community on Netflix.
Yep.
It's great.
Yep.
The first 4 seasons are great. Honestly, maybe it should have ended after 4 seasons, but there's 6 seasons. So.
I mean, it sort of did, and then they brought it back, as far as I know.
Okay, I don't know about that. So,
yeah, I think when it got not good was because it was being revived less goodly.
I can confirm that is correct grammar.
All right, excellent. You are the source of authority on that matter, just like Seamless Transition. David is the ultimate source of authority on our bet. And I am proud to say for the first time on this podcast, I just want to let everybody know that Alex does owe me $1, and I'm going to read this email to tell you why.
All right, I cannot wait
to
disregard everything in this email.
This is an email from Cephalopod Master. Subject line, one of you is a dumbass. I'll let you guess which one.
It's you.
It's not me. All right. Cephalopodmaster says, number 1, first of all, about the bet. I think the bet is not nullified because neither of you specified what's implied by making it to the Sweet 16, so it's not unreasonable to interpret the wording of the bet literally. That being said, if I recall correctly, neither of you also specified that Purdue will make it to the Sweet 16 this year. So following the spirit of literal interpretation, the bet doesn't resolve until either 1, Purdue's team does make it to the Sweet 16 at some point in the future, or 2, Purdue Athletics or NCAA or whatever it's called dissolves and rendering Purdue unable to make it to the Sweet 16 under any circumstance. So in the end, Alex doesn't owe Nathan $1 yet. You may be thinking, wait a minute. I said, this is not in the email anymore. This is me talking.
Yeah, this is you narrating.
Yes, I said that you do owe me $1.
Right.
So I read this first bit and I was like, man, who am I going to turn to as the third source of truth to disregard everything that David just said? But David, he's helping me out here. There's a several line breaks in the email at this point. At which point David continues, scratch that. All of that. Scratch it. Alex declared pineapples as the worst pizza topping, which is clearly nonsense, so he loses all bets he has ever made instantly and now owes Nathan several dollars. Now, I understand that's a bit ridiculous, but...
A bit?
A bit. Just a bit. You don't owe me several dollars. I think you do owe me the $1 from the Sweet 16 bet. I'm willing to go back and listen to get all the literal interpretation stuff that he was talking about, but honestly, I think if you look at this reasonably, you would conclude that we were talking about this year.
All right, so
and I think it's also reasonable to say that there's no way that Purdue could have been considered making it to the Sweet 16 this year.
So if you're going to say it's reasonable to interpret that we were talking about the Sweet this year, how can you say that we must then honor the literal interpretation of the words, whether they made the Sweet 16? So,
well, because if you're making that assumption, the literal interpretation is this year. If you
did we say this year?
I don't know, but if you assume we did, then that's the literal interpretation.
You can't just assume we did. If you assume David, the words of the bet are what I want them to be, then I'm right.
David, please email us and let us know.
Let me secondly say this. While I totally agree with Cephalopod here that it's reasonable to interpret the bet in such a way that I owe you $1, the non-biased arbiter that you personally selected to decide on this matter ruled in my favor. So,
but then the new one didn't, though. So
you can't just change it just because you don't like the answer.
That's exactly what you do to resolve bets.
No, that's exactly what you do to resolve bets.
All right,
that's not what most people
The email continues.
Yeah, please, everyone who's listening, please email us.
Everyone who's listening. I know there's more listeners than David now.
Yes,
I've talked to some of you who have mentioned to me that you listen to the podcast, and I can't believe you haven't emailed us. It's so easy. You just have to go to alexandalex@joelthepodcast.github.io/alexandalex@joelthepodcast.website, and there's a link right there. It's so easy to do. I can't believe you haven't just gone to alexandalex@joelthepodcast.github.io/ alexandalex@joelthepodcast.website. I'm getting so hysterical that I forgot our very easy to remember URL. Just click the link there. Send us an email. I'm talking to you that are listening to this right now and haven't sent us an email yet. Yes, you. Email us right now and tell us.
And let me tell you, I've paid some of these people money.
Yes.
And they haven't emailed us. I'm going to say right now, I will not be paying anyone else any money unless they email us.
Yes, that's a very good So for all future reference, whether or not whoever it is listens to this podcast, I think we can point to this podcast as the definitive source of truth. I think we can agree on that. That anyone who wants to claim money for us based on something we said in the podcast has to do it in the form of an email.
Agreed.
Because then they would email us, and I can't believe they haven't done so yet.
Yeah, so, but that having been said, I totally agree with your outraged sentiment that we haven't received an email from any of these people, but I am excited that these people are listening to our podcast. So,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
So
keep it up.
Thanks for listening, everyone. All of you who are. And if you're not listening, how are you hearing this? So, so keep listening and send us an email. Let us know your thoughts on the bet and on our podcast in general and on topics and pretty much whatever you want. Because we love receiving emails. So, is that the end of David's email that you read?
No, I actually didn't read any more of it after I said there was more.
All right, let me just make one comment on the last part where I lose all of my bets because I said pineapple was the worst topping. So, first of all, I don't remember if I actually said pineapple was the worst topping. If I did say that, I would have to rescind it because I don't actually think pineapple is the worst topping. I just don't like pineapple on pizza myself. But I don't think it's the worst topping, and I respect people who do like pineapple on pizza. So, which is a lot more than you'll get from most people. So
yes, and I for
slightly
the record,
resent that.
Respect Alex's viewpoint here of not liking it, but not being a dick about it.
Right. All right. So read the rest.
I think this might have come from the 5-second rule episode because one of my things was worst pizza toppings.
Oh, okay.
So you may have said that as a joke, which was kind of the point of the
I probably said it because it was the first thing that came to my mind.
Right.
That would be a reasonable answer, not because I really hate it. So
right.
All right.
All right. So that was all number one. Number two. Also, Nathan is right about the quarks. I knew I was right about the quarks.
Okay.
But thanks.
Good. Congrats.
He's currently studying physics, so I feel validated that a official real physicist told me I was right about physics.
Nice.
Number three, Greece is not Eastern European. Again, this was one of our 5-second rule topics. We had to name Eastern European countries.
I remember.
Whoever it was said Greece.
It was me.
It was you. So he says Greece is not Eastern European, and there is an attachment here of a map. And I take issue with this map. I'm going to show you the map if I can.
All right, please do.
Is that clear?
Let me just hold on. I want a different window. Okay, yeah, I can see this map.
Sorry, it's a bit tilted. I can easily fix that.
He's cut off like 50% of Europe. What is this?
Well, okay, so the point of this map is Eastern Europe, right? And right. There's like these lightly colored countries that are Eastern European, and then the darker ones are not. And you can clearly see at the bottom there, Greece is not the color of Eastern Europe. But it's further east than a lot of Eastern Europe. How is it not Eastern Europe?
Okay, I want to know what the source of this map is.
Yeah, I take issue with this map. So
like, how is Ukraine not an Eastern European country? It's in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, I mean, all of the countries that are east of where these Eastern European countries are, I would say like Lithuania, Ukraine, Belarus. They're Eastern European, right? I really hope there's not some like cultural thing that it's offensive to consider them Eastern European or something. But
they're extra Eastern European here.
Yeah. See.
So yeah, Cephalopod, I apologize to say this, but you're wrong about this. Greece is in Eastern Europe.
Right. I can't. I need more of an argument than this picture because I disagree with this picture. All right, and then number 4, I think the game is more fun when you argue for a dumb answer or say really clever ones. So do that more, I guess.
Is he talking about 5-second rule?
Again, referring to the 5-second rule. So if we do that in the future, I think we need to pick more challenging categories that don't have simple answers so that we can't just say the simple answers.
Right. Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, Cephalopod here. The thing is, it's just hard to necessarily come up with something that's going to be interesting to argue about in 5 seconds. Like, even if it's a tough topic, I'll tend to just not think of anything rather than think of something that's like controversial. So, but
maybe what we should do is have a targeted 5-second rule episode where all of the things are like deliberately designed to be controversial in some way. Okay. Not like offensively controversial, but like...
Yeah, no, I know. Like sandwiches.
Yeah, and then we can just, make up some stupid things, like deliberately to...
Right.
Claim our sandwiches.
All right, well, thank you for the feedback, Cephalopod.
Yeah, I'm sure... I'm sure at some point we'll have nothing to think of to do, and we'll just recycle that idea again. So
Indeed.
Maybe even next week, because
it might be too soon next week.
Maybe. And that is the end of the email.
Okay.
So
thank you for emailing us.
Yep, we appreciate it. All the rest of you that are listening to this and not emailing us at this very instant, please.
Shame on you.
Yeah, shame on you. Please stop listening right now and email us and then come back.
Or you could keep listening as you're emailing us. Either way, as long as you start emailing us right now.
In fact, let's just pause for like 10 or 15 seconds so that they have a chance to get started. I know the hardest part is getting started.
Right.
So we're just not going to say anything for the next 10 seconds. That way you have no choice but to go email us if you want interesting content.
Consider this a moment of silence for all the future bad content we're going to have because no one emailed us if you don't email us right now. All right.
Yep, here we go.
All right, time's up.
Every time you glanced back at the screen, I thought you were going to say time's up, and I was so ready to just go. That was super boring. If you didn't get bored and start to email us during that time period, what's wrong with you?
Exactly. We on the same page there.
Yeah. There's only one page to be on, and it's the you should go email us page.
Yeah, so.
Don't make us do that again. We'll do it.
Don't test us.
We'll make it longer next time. We'll make it 20 seconds of uncomfortable silence.
In like several months, we'll just have like 8 minutes of silence just in the middle of the episode because people haven't emailed us. Hey, easier for us, less content for us to create.
Yep.
So do email us. I want to say that. So I mentioned that I've been paying people money. It's because they've identified the object that was making the sound in the last episode that from your end. And I gotta say that I actually did not know the name of it. So thanks to all the people who correctly identified it and taught me the name of it. I obviously won't be saying it out loud because I'll still be accepting submissions.
Oh, really? This is just like... Is there a cutoff date?
I mean, no, because it's a way for me to find out if people are listening to the podcast.
Fair enough.
If it starts becoming a problem where a lot of people are identifying it, then I'll stop. But as of now, I don't really...
You have to be one of the first... What do you want? First 10? Is that fair?
I'm not going to put a limit on it right now. I would just say, if you know what it is, you must, like I said, you must email us to get the money now. Right. But for now, I'm just leaving it open for anyone. And if you get the answer from someone else who also already sent the answer, that's kind of cheap. So I obviously have no way of checking that, but honor system here. Don't be mean about it. These are my dollars after all, and you got to be honest if you're going to be receiving them.
Right. This is. I mean, we say honor system, but like genuinely, if you can provide any sort of photo evidence of you having this idea on your own without anyone telling it to you.
Actually, I would say that's required at this point is photographic evidence that no one told you the idea.
All right. That settles it. Email us the photo evidence, and then
the name, obviously,
and the Venmo account. And Alex will send you $1 as a
and
reward.
if you don't include the evidence, I will Venmo request $1 from you.
There you go. The other thing is, what if they guess wrong? Is there a punishment for just sending us emails of random words and hoping?
Yeah, if you send us an email with an incorrect guess, we will publicly shame you on this podcast. That's the punishment.
Excellent. That's a good punishment. I like it.
All right. So I think that's a good 25-minute intro.
Yep, we are good and introduced to the topic of our podcast.
And I did not mention that you don't owe me $1, but I should just say that. So all right, so introduction complete. We move on to our main topic, which was suggested by Cephalopod some time ago. It is the topic of aliens, and we're just gonna kind of do our best here. So
we should point out, first of all, that we did take this request very seriously, which is why it took so long. We tried our best to prepare and have some interesting content to share with you. So please do give us your feedback on how great of a job we did. And that's all, please. Just how great we did.
Yeah, so if you have negative feedback, just rephrase it to say we're doing a good job.
Yeah, there's this is a life lesson that I have learned. Nobody's ever taught it to me. I've had to learn it the hard way, so I'm going to share it with all of you. All feedback is good feedback if you only say the nice parts.
Right, exactly.
So there you go. Just say the nice parts.
Right. All right. So let's begin here. First of all, I wanted to say that I was kind of disappointed by. It wasn't easy for me. Okay. It wasn't just. I wasn't easily able to find completely nutty conspiracy theories. Right.
I totally agree.
Like most videos that I watched were just kind of like, here's what some people say, but here's what it really is. And it's like, okay, well, it's clearly just false. So like, what's the interesting part about that?
Right.
So, if you're a crazy conspiracy theorist, makes your work more public. Okay, we wanna be able to find it and email it to us.
Yeah, I really hope that at some point in the future, the majority of the emails we receive are crazy conspiracy theories. I would love that.
Right, and I bet the people who
would make this podcast much better if we could constantly be pulling out our conspiracy theory emails to share.
Right, and I bet people who have these theories are very happy that we're calling them crazy. So
crazy good. See what I did there? I only said the nice part.
Right, exactly. All right. So, do you want to talk about something that you watched first?
All right. I want to bring up one channel in particular that honestly, because I faced the same problem, I had trouble finding like the really weird conspiracy theories. I think most of the really fun and entertaining stuff I watched was clips from the History Channel show Ancient Aliens.
Yes.
And my favorite part about the show Ancient Aliens is that they say all this crazy stuff as if it's real, and the way they phrase these things is really entertaining to me. They'll say like, is the moon an actual alien base that was put there thousands of years ago? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes. And then they'll go on to talk about that. Like, what ancient astronaut theorist says yes?
What is an ancient astronaut theorist?
I would love to, like, please hook me up directly to those guys. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It was like every one of those videos too. I'm not paraphrasing that. I mean, I made up the moon thing, but like the ancient astronaut theorists, right. That was literally in every Ancient Aliens clip I watched. It was some insane claim, and then the dude in that voice would say, "Ancient astronaut theorists say yes."
Right, and they have like what I love is they have like guys like talking, like being interviewed. Yeah. Where in like a normal documentary, you would be like, okay, here's like an expert in the field, like a guy with a doctor or whatever. But it's usually just it's a nice dressed up guy and they say his name and it's like author of whatever. Right, it's like, okay, so this is clearly just a guy that they brought in. Like, okay,
yeah,
it lends credibility. Like seemingly lends credibility where there would otherwise be none.
Right. And the shadier version of that, they didn't do this so often, but every once in a while they would have on like an actual cosmologist or something that would say the sensible cosmology thing, but it would just be like a clip of it that doesn't really, like, it doesn't contradict the weird alien stuff they just brought up. So
what I have to say about the Ancient Alien series is I watched one clip from the series, and it ended up not being about aliens for some reason. But it was like, you know how when you watch like a clip of a show, it'll show like YouTube will advertise like, oh, watch the show here, right? Yeah. And it was like, oh, Ancient Aliens, 10 seasons. I'm like, there's 10 seasons of this show? Are you kidding me?
I was amazed by that too. Yeah.
What did they talk about? So tell me about some of the clips that you saw about that.
All right. Oh man, this is where if we were a proper podcast, we would have written notes on all of these things. So instead of that, I'm just going to go from memory and try and say some of the things that I remember.
Give me some highlights.
You know what? I'm not even going to try that. I'm going to try this thing that I do remember.
Okay, go ahead.
I think the Ancient Aliens people said this as well, but I want to bring up my favorite theory that I came across during this whole research. And that is the fact that humans are actually aliens. Like, all humans are aliens.
Right.
Like, we don't belong on Earth. And they'd say stuff like, you know how often we get sick? Isn't it weird that we're, like, allergic to plant dust in the air every year? We don't belong here. Like, just the...
Right.
You start to think they've got a point, right? Like,
right.
It is kind of strange that people are allergic to grass and peanuts and stuff. That seems really dumb.
You know what? I'm convinced.
we started off making fun of Ancient Aliens a little bit there, but honestly, they brought up some good points.
I think I got a new show I'm gonna binge.
Right? Yeah. If I can find it, man, I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So okay, that's interesting. So
yeah.
So the first videos that I saw were all about Area 51.
That's a good.
Because Area 51 was obviously very, popular recently in the news, in like September last year when people were gonna raid Area 51 or whatever.
Right.
But honestly, the stuff about Area 51's not that interesting, because basically the whole story is they were making like military aircraft, stealth military aircraft there that flew at high altitudes.
Yeah.
And people saw the stuff and didn't know what it was. They thought it was UFOs. And also there was like the Roswell incident where like something crashed in a field, and the Air Force like secured it and took it back to Area 51, and people think that it was like alien remains or whatever. But like sometime in the last 20 years, the government like declassified the fact that Area 51 exists and what it is. So it's like a lot of the theories were just kind of debunked.
Yeah. It's a real like I feel like it's just a really boring conspiracy, even if it's true, right? Like, there's
even if it's true, you think 51. It's boring that the government is hiding aliens in Area 51?
As far as conspiracy goes, that's pretty tame. Like,
okay, yes, as far as conspiracies go.
Okay, yeah, no. Let me frame this properly. That's a boring conspiracy. That would be a very interesting thing.
Right.
But like, the real stuff I wanted to hear about was these videos that told me that aliens have been programming our DNA and Earth is actually a quantum supercomputer and we're all just in a simulation.
Ah. So if we're in a simulation, how is the Earth the supercomputer? Wouldn't the Earth also be simulated?
Maybe I blended together a couple of different things there, but
sounds like somebody read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, in which Earth is a supercomputer run by mice.
Yeah, I mean, imagine a group of people out there looking at the work of a science fiction author and thinking, man, that's all true. We should make a religion out of this.
A religion. So I didn't find really as much as what you're talking about, where it's like big conspiracy theories about like society or whatever. Mm-hmm. But what I found were some interesting like alien abduction cases.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I think we kind of went in different directions with this. I tried to find like the grand conspiracy, and you've got these like individual weird things.
So the one that I thought was most interesting, because none of these are explained. Okay, so it's not like these are debunked in any way. They're just we don't know what happened.
Right.
So the first thing is that the one that I found most interesting was there's this guy who was a pilot, and he radioed like the control tower or whatever. I don't know who he was radioing, but he said something like there's like a craft. He said there was like a craft above him.
Yeah.
And it was just hovering over him. It wasn't like flying somewhere else. And
so like he's in a plane, right? And it's just like staying on top of his plane.
Right. I don't know exactly. I think it was like kind of high up, but it wasn't. But it was staying over him, and the control tower said there were no other known aircraft in the area. And then so he radioed them again, and he said like, yeah, this weird thing is just like right over me, and then he disappeared. He was never heard from again.
Wow.
And they were not able to find any wreckage of his plane.
Huh.
It's pretty interesting.
That is pretty interesting. I see. I feel like I hit a bunch of dead ends in my searches. Like I found like a couple interesting videos here and there, but honestly, the majority of the stuff I was finding was like either one, people trying to debunk the things that I wanted to find.
Right.
Two, it turns out that it's actually just like a weird connection to religion or something.
Right.
Or three, it turned out to be like not aliens, just a different conspiracy theory, like we don't have free will or something like that. And those are interesting too. I wanted to watch some of those, but I tried to stick to the aliens theme.
Yeah, so the thing was, this guy was known to be like very into aliens.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like this is just a regular guy who is like seeing things. But what's interesting to me, and I don't know. I mean, I guess the thing is, it is feasible that he was just like, kind of, he saw something that was not really an alien craft, and then his plane crashed.
Right.
Which, but it's just interesting, the sequence of events, the way it happened, and like some of the other cases that I saw, it was people who were still around, like they claimed they were abducted by aliens or whatever, and then they came back. But this one, like, this guy, he disappeared. So, weird.
Yeah. So that's a lot more commitment. I thought this story was just going to end with, like, oh, he was abducted, and then he, like, landed, and then, all that stuff. Disappearing is like, really, you got to really commit to that.
Right.
Because the thing, so here's the thing. With all of these, like, the people that say, like, oh, I was abducted by aliens. They're just lying, right? Like,
that's an interesting question.
That's a pretty easy
probably many
explanation.
Of them are. Probably many of them are lying.
Yeah.
But I think some of them probably are just mentally ill and actually think they were abducted by aliens.
Yeah, no, that is possible. Probably you can I wouldn't know anything about this myself, but I'm sure there are some really good drugs out there that will give you the sort of alien abduction experience you're looking for.
Right. So So I guess that brings us to another story, which is much more of a traditional alien abduction story. So there was this group of like, I think they said like 5 or 6 like guys. I think they were like lumberjacks or something who were in a forest, and they saw like basically a flying saucer hovering in the forest, and it, like, a beam of light came down and like abducted one of the guys, and the other guys ran away. And the guy says that he woke up in the craft, and he gives somewhat of an explanation as to what he saw in the craft, but it was like aliens basically. And then they sedated him again, and he woke back up like on, I don't remember. He woke back in the forest or something like that, and it was like 5 days later, even though he said he thought it had only been a few hours. And he and his companions all reported what they saw and were given lie detector tests because his companions were investigated for his disappearance. So they were given lie detector tests, and none of the lie detectors showed up as having, like, they were lying.
Right.
So, like, the thing is, you can explain away this guy, but it's weird that all his companions would also go along with it, especially if they were being investigated.
Yeah, the bigger the group, the harder it is to maintain this kind of, conspiracy type thing.
Right, and just to make it even more confusing, this guy, actually no, 2 things to make it more confusing. Number one, this guy went on to like a TV show, like many years later, where they gave him a lie detector test on the show as they asked him about it, and he failed the lie detector test on the TV show and said he was lying.
Oh, that's interesting.
And finally, I don't know exactly what the source is for this, whether it's just these guys saying it or someone had actually, like, scientists had actually tested it or whatever, but they said that the tree bark or plants or something near where the alien ship has supposedly appeared were growing much faster than the rest of the trees in the area. So, many interesting, weird components, but that was another interesting one that I saw. Right.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think so. My question for both of those, well, I suppose we really could only answer the second case. Did they have like a purpose for abducting him? Did he give an explanation?
No, he didn't really say. And if you presume the story's true, then there's no way he would really know, because he was basically sedated for 5 days and for the whole time. So,
yeah. See, I think it's interesting what these people say the aliens are, like, want or did or are trying to do.
Right.
I came across a story of someone who said they were abducted. It was one of the few, like, abduction kind of things that I saw. And they said that they saw on the craft, in addition to, like, the aliens and stuff, apparently they were able to, like, get up and walk around on the alien ship, and they saw a bunch of different things from Earth, almost like kind of a zoo.
Interesting.
Except everything was, like, in a, like, as if they were, like, drugged or something, like they weren't, like, all alive and going around and stuff. They were sedated or something, but it was they reported this kind of significant collection of animals, plants, other people, it was pretty interesting story, because it's like, that's kind of the most extreme example, I think, of some of the ones where they're like, oh, the aliens, like, did tests on me and then sent me back.
Right.
Where they had, like, collected all these things. So,
Did you see any other interesting conspiracy theories?
I'll go back to one of the ones that I just kind of like casually threw out earlier, which is the fact that so there's actually two big ones that I want to bring up. First, that I don't have all that much to say about is the one where people say like our DNA was designed by aliens to like improve us as people above animals.
Right.
Which that kind of got into like some of the overlaps that I found with like religion that people were bringing in. Like there were a lot of theories like, are all of the ancient gods and things in mythology, were those just aliens that visited people and like, you know, helped us and all this stuff. I find that one interesting because it's strange to me that they did all that like a couple thousand years ago and seemingly just disappeared, unless, I don't know, maybe they are abducting people and like, you know, testing them in their spaceships. It's all intertwined. It's really hard to say like, oh, this is ridiculous.
So let me ask you this before you go further.
Yeah.
Do you think that aliens exist somewhere in the universe?
I think that aliens exist somewhere in the universe, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if they're intelligent, but I think there's other life.
Right. All right, anyway, carry on.
All right. So that's kind of the theme of like aliens coming and improving people, editing DNA, that sort of thing. And the other big theme that you see a lot is aliens helping humans to create some of the ancient monuments and things.
Yep.
Like, for example, the pyramids. That's a big one, right?
Right.
Like, all of these Egyptian mythology figures can just be interpreted as it was aliens.
Right.
And there are people out there who think humans couldn't possibly have created the Great Pyramids. It must have been alien technology. Those are very large rocks that they dragged up those pyramids.
Right.
And I mean, I see why you might think that. That's a very impressive thing for people to do, but is it really like beyond your comprehension that people could have?
Right. It's weird that a more believable explanation than people doing it is that aliens did it.
Right, absolutely.
One thing that I think is interesting now that you bring this kind of stuff up is that if aliens had shown up before Egypt, really, because Egypt had like records and stuff, but before humans really started keeping historical records, there's no guarantee that we would have any evidence of that.
Right.
Like, it could have happened and we would just never know.
Yeah, it definitely could have.
That's weird to think about.
Yeah, anything could have happened before. Who actually knows? So the real conspiracy, I think, is that aliens came to Earth before humans existed, did nothing, and then left.
Right.
Because everything else is like, well, there's easily other explanations.
Or they did something like programmed humans' DNA.
Or they programmed humans' DNA, because that's a very
that's a very normal thing for aliens to do.
So it's one of those things. It's kind of interesting. I wish that somebody did a lot of research and presented it to me. Like, I feel like we did some research and now we're presenting it to people, but we did bad research and we're only presenting it in like a funny way.
Right.
But now I want like somebody to do good research and present it to me in an informational way.
Right.
So that I can ask them questions like, did the conspiracy theories center around technology that sort of existed but hadn't really hit mainstream, or like were the next step of existing technology. Because, for example, like when people were saying, oh, humans couldn't have built the pyramids, they must have been built by aliens. Like, we think now, like, oh, if they had some cranes, it would be trivial. So,
right.
like, you know, but so now that people have it in their imaginations, like, oh, we can sort of edit genes. We can mess around with DNA. That's like starting to happen. Like, did those conspiracies start around that time? Like, did people start to think like, oh, I bet aliens did this to us because there's no other explanation?
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah. Which I have no like intelligent commentary on. So again, if you're like knowledgeable about this, please email us.
He did finger guns.
I did finger guns to encourage you to email us.
Yeah, so if you have any comments about aliens or thoughts about conspiracies about aliens, or like you said, more information than we do about aliens, please do email us and let us know, because it is kind of interesting. And honestly, I feel like, okay, I might get some ridicule for saying this, but I feel like people who believe alien conspiracy theories, certain ones, obviously not all of them, but get too much ridicule. Like, anytime somebody hears, like, if you tell someone you believe in alien conspiracy theory, they're just gonna laugh at you, right? They're gonna think you're a nut job.
Right.
But I feel like there's some where you don't necessarily have to be a nut job to believe it.
Yeah. No, there's definitely like there's a really negative connotation with conspiracy theories, and I feel like aliens as a whole are like on the tame end of the conspiracy theory scale.
Right.
Like, all of that could totally be true, and that wouldn't make all of these human actions super insane. Like conspiracies like the moon landing was faked, I feel like is way more unbelievable to me than any alien conspiracy theory. Because to get all of those people involved and for no one to have come out with anything by now, 50 years later, I mean, that's just crazy to me that you would coordinate a conspiracy on that scale with all those people and not even one of them brings out the truth. Maybe they did. Maybe all the conspiracy theorists are the ones that...
They're the only sane ones.
See, this is the
rest
problem
of
with conspiracy theories, because if you start to believe the conspiracy theory, then you're like, of course the conspiracy theories are true. What else is a conspiracy theory that I can latch on to?
Right, and it's like if the conspiracy theory is true, then it makes sense that people would work hard to make other people think that they're people who believe them are crazy.
Of course, yeah. Like, everything makes sense. Everything within the conspiracy is equally self-consistent in some cases. So
right.
It's a really dangerous flat world out there for all of you conspiracy theorists trying
Let me take a moment to bring up something that's tangentially related to what we're talking about.
All right, that is... I'll allow it just this once. We can't go on tangents in this podcast too frequently.
So, in The West Wing, which is a TV show for those of you who don't know, there's a couple episodes where supposedly they do this once a year in the world of the show, where the chief of staff schedules meetings for like the senior staffers in the White House with people who normally would have trouble, getting meetings with people in the White House like that. And so, for example, one of the things is a guy who believes in aliens, right? And he he brings up like that there's some kind of unidentified craft flying, near Hawaii or something, and it ends up just being a satellite that fell out of orbit. But one of the ones that I thought was really interesting was there's a group, and they were in the show. They were called like Cartographers for Social Equality, which sounds like a really dumb name. But what they talk about is how the Mercator projection like promotes social inequality because it portrays Europe and North America as being larger than like Africa, which makes us feel more important or whatever. And it's obviously you and I know about the projections and how things are not actually the size they are on that map, but it's hilarious to see the characters on the show like learning that like no, Greenland and Africa are not the same size, even though they look that way on the map. And they bring up like some projection. I don't remember maybe it's the Peters projection or something that is like maintains size correctly, and they flip it upside down. And
that's another weird thing.
Right, and
upside down maps are just as valid. But
right, and she's like, "You can't do that." And they're like, "Well, why not?"
Why
and she's
not?
like, "You just can't." It's pretty funny. But
man. At the risk of going on a maps tangent, I find that really fascinating too. So the Mercator projection is obviously just hot garbage, and if you're using it, you shouldn't. I don't think there's any real reasons.
It depends on why you're using it.
Well, okay, there's probably some valid use cases, but probably your use case isn't one of those.
If you don't know what we're talking about, do yourself a favor and look it up, because it's really interesting. The world does not look like you think it does.
If you're and that sounds like a conspiracy, but it's not.
It's true.
If you're the kind of person that's listening to this podcast, you're probably the kind of person that if you looked up the... who does it? Is it I think it's a Vsauce video of like map projection, different map projections. Very good.
There's an XKCD about it too.
I'm sure there is, yeah. So yeah, anything you can get your hands on about map projections. It's a strangely interesting topic.
Yes.
I think anything is strangely interesting, honestly, as long as you can like present it in the right way.
Well, there are certain things that are not.
Well, I'm sure that's true, but broad generalizations are more interesting to say.
Yeah.
There are. I am more interested in. To continue this tangent. I'm going to introduce you, Alex, and all of our wonderful listeners, who should email us, by the way, to a new YouTube channel. I expect this is new to all of you. If you have heard of this YouTube channel and watched videos on this channel before, and please be honest, I will Venmo you $1. The channel is called Technology Connections, and it's videos of this. So I take it you haven't heard of this before. I explain it to you. Okay,
I have not heard of it.
It's videos of this guy. He's like, I don't know, just a guy with a strange love of older. I mean, not in all cases. Basically, he doesn't review. He like presents how old technology works. Things like, I watched a video this morning about space heaters. It sounds super dumb. It was, kind of all right. It wasn't one of his best, but it was interesting to hear this dude talk about space heaters for 17 minutes on YouTube.
Right.
Because he has this presentation style that I enjoyed listening to it, and it was kind of cool to learn a little bit about something that I really didn't know anything about. So I've seen one of my favorite videos that he's done was about a toaster. It was a Sunbeam toaster from the 60s that I don't want to spoil anything. Go watch his Sunbeam toaster video.
All right,
it's a magical toaster.
Say the name of the channel again for all of our listeners, and definitely not me, because I definitely remember it.
Alex definitely remembers it, but for everyone else out there, the YouTube channel is Technology Connections. And again, if you have heard of that or watched one of his videos before, I will Venmo you $1, as long as you email me with proof that you have watched one of his videos before. And in fact, you can do that because you can go to your YouTube history and take a screenshot and crop out just the date.
Whoa! Are you telling people to send us actual proof? That seems a little excessive.
Proof. We're talking about my dollars here. I want some real proof.
Fair enough.
Right. I will maybe relax my standards a little bit if you make a reasonable effort. And please don't deceive me with Photoshop because I'm very easy to trick. I guarantee, send you $1 if you make any effort. But again, please don't trick me. It would be so simple for you to do, and you could get $1 incredibly easily.
Why are you saying how easy it is? That's going to make people want to do it more. Just want to emphasize how easily you could get $1 from me for no effort.
Just to emphasize this, you can email me with the subject, "You are a dumbass," and regardless of what the rest of the email is, I'll Venmo you $1. That's as easy as it is.
You just keep making accounts. I'll keep sending you new even if it's the same Venmo, I won't get suspicious.
Right. I mean, yeah, you could just create a YouTube channel, watch one of the videos, or better yet, just tell me that you did that. No need to go through all the effort. And do that as many times as you want for unlimited dollars.
Nice.
There is a limit to the dollars. I don't have unlimited dollars.
That's a shame.
That is a shame. If I had unlimited dollars, I feel like we would put out more than one podcast a week because we could...
we wouldn't have to work.
We could do nothing but podcast.
I'm glad that I'm included in that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly, well... Unless I found a better podcast partner. I suppose. I could hire anybody with my unlimited dollars.
If you think you would be a better podcaster than me, please do not email us. I don't want to hear from you because I like being in this podcast. So just listen from a distance and email us about other stuff.
Yes. Yeah. No. Importantly, you should still email us, just not about the fact that you're better than Alex at podcasting.
I actually would love it if people emailed us podcast audition tapes.
Oh man, that'd be so cool. I was thinking it would be kind of fun if we had like guest podcasters sometimes, where it was like us and someone else, or just one of us and someone else, maybe. I don't know.
We've already done it with us and someone else.
Right. So maybe. See, there's not really any times where we would like need to not be podcasting together, right? Like
that we know of right now.
Like it's conceivable that we would want somebody to substitute for us for a little bit, I guess, but like let's be honest, the real point of this is so that I can talk to Alex. So
right.
That's, it sort of defeats the purpose.
If you want to talk to Nathan, start your own podcast.
Yeah, or just, or just that could be you could just talk to me. Or that's the key to our guest podcasters is sometimes we talk to other people and also record those conversations and also post those conversations on our YouTube channel.
Right.
We could easily like double or triple the amount of content we were able to put out on a weekly basis if we start talking to other people.
Right.
So
indeed.
If that sounds fun to you, get in touch.
Yeah.
With your audition tapes.
Yes. I honestly don't know what would be in a podcast audition tape, but I'm excited to find out.
Right. Impress us. It's your audition. Do a good job.
Do a good job.
Yep. Don't make any speaking mistakes.
We would never do anything like that.
Never ever.
Honestly, you don't realize how much we do it until you remember when you I just did like I'm so conscious of it. But when you were making the commercial and you were like typing out what all of the words we were saying were.
Yep.
Oh, you can just see all the stuttering and going back and
and that's I think that's what gives our podcast its character. It's because we don't. It's not like we don't have a polish to it.
Right. No one listens to our podcast because we're good.
That is a great line for our next commercial.
Yeah. In what is it? April now.
It is April now.
In 8 months, something like that.
Our next year. Our next anniversary of the podcast.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, you have anything else on aliens?
Honestly, we said this a bunch before the aliens episode, that if you could find some crazy aliens content, please email us what that is. I'm gonna leave that as an open-ended offer because I am still interested in this topic. I probably won't watch several hours of Aliens content daily like I have been doing the past 5 weeks in preparation. But
obviously,
yeah, clearly. But I would still be interested in being entertained by this content. So yeah, send us your thoughts. Send us your personal alien abduction stories, complete with lie detector tests, please. Otherwise, I can't possibly believe you.
Right. And just also in general, we're always looking for topics and stuff to talk about. So send us if you have other ideas.
Yeah.
About what we should talk about. Let us know. But I think that's it for this episode.
We should maybe come up with like a smoother way to end the episodes. I feel like we always just end up talking for about an hour and then saying like, "Oh, it's been about time. Let's get back into this mindset where we're making a podcast instead of we're having a conversation and like awkwardly wrap it up podcast style." Do you know what I mean? Does that make any sense?
You're saying we should end the conversation more naturally than me saying, "All right, I think that's it."
Well, I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I think what I'm getting at is there's a sweet spot in the podcast where we kind of forget it's a podcast and we just start talking, and that's the good part.
Right.
And then we get to the end. I don't know, maybe I'm just totally wrong, but I feel like at the end we get back into this mindset of like, oh, we need to like end the podcast now, and it stops being so natural.
I feel like that happens when we kind of reach a stopping point or a lull in our norm. Like, you're right. We go through the podcast and then we get into a conversation.
Yeah.
Then at some point we hit like a lull or a stop in that conversation.
Yeah.
And I think that's in general when we end the podcast. So I'm not sure. I mean, we have to end the podcast at some point. I'm not sure what a better way of ending the. If you have an idea of what a better way of ending the podcast is than what we're currently doing, I'm open to ideas.
Well, maybe what we could do is just cut it off in the middle of a sentence, and it's just over.
Yeah, that sounds.
By the way, you can give your feedback on this, but if we were to do that for this episode, that sentence right there would be the one to just stop.
Right. Well, I don't think we should do that.
Okay.
But
I just want everyone to, since this is now considered part of the podcast still, since we haven't ended.
Right.
Just think about how funny that would have been. Like, we could have done it. It would have been funny. You're welcome.
Yeah, just go back and pause it right in the middle of that sentence and then say, "Oh, that's the end of the podcast," then laugh at the joke and then turn it back on.
Right.
So,
Yep.
But we do still have to do an Olive Garden quote, and I really don't want to end the podcast any other way than the I'm Alex, and this has been Joel. Nice.
Oh no, it's over. Yeah, let's I'm gonna look up a quote real fast. The way I do right at the end when I remember that this is a thing we do weekly.
Right, yeah. So I'm just gonna stutter a little while more while you do that. Because I don't have anything to say. Normally I would talk about like Philadelphia sports during this time, but there isn't any right now. But I guess I can talk about Community. What a great show Community is. It goes so fast because it's half an hour episodes, so definitely very light watching. Good characters, good actors, good gimmicks. No real plot to speak of, but they do have some good, like, very interesting episodes that you wouldn't normally see on a kind of a sitcom TV show. Do you have a favorite episode so far?
That's tough. I've been a fan of, I think the original Paintball episode was one of my favorites.
Yep.
Because I kind of knew that Community did this thing where it stopped being a sitcom like a regular just TV show and started being like a really meta TV show about being a TV show, kind of.
Right.
And that was one of the big ones where I was like, this is now like very self-aware of how absurd it is, but it's also very good. So
right.
Also, yeah, the entire character of Abed is awesome.
I love Abed.
Yeah.
And there's one of the Christmas episodes. I don't know if you've got to it yet. Where everything
the claymation one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
I have the same feeling about John Oliver in this show as I did about Nick Offerman in 21 Jump Street. Throwback to the time we did a podcast about 21 Jump Street.
Uh-huh.
I mean, on one hand, it's probably like good story-wise that he isn't in the podcast.
He isn't in the podcast. Although John Oliver, if you are interested in being on the podcast.
Oh man, John Oliver being a part of this podcast. John, you could replace me. We could make this John and Alex.
Well, he would have to be Alex also. I mean, everyone.
Oh, I guess you would. Yeah, so I mean maybe that will affect his willingness to do it, but John Oliver, if you're willing to change your name to Alex and appear on this podcast, please email us.
We would love to have you.
That would be super fun. I forgot to continue to look at quotes while I was talking about that, so I'm just going to take this one, which is the only one I can find, by the guy on Ancient Aliens with like the big hair.
That guy
He's the guy from the Aliens meme.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, so he's a recurring character on the show. I say character. He's one of the authors that they take their quotes from and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And one of his quotes, in fact, the only one of his quotes that I can easily find on the internet, which is really surprising. You'd think that you'd be able to find like tons of clips of this guy. Right. I'm not trying very hard, so obviously I'm sure you can.
Right.
But the quote, here's the quote. We are
go.
Made of stardust. Our whole body consists of material that has been here in the middle of this olive garden before the beginning of time.
Nice.
Which is pretty sensible.
Right. So,
not at all about aliens. Kind of a bummer.
By the way, I remembered earlier I was thinking about something. So I told you I watched a clip from Ancient Aliens, and there was something in the clip that made me think that the guy who was speaking really had just been given like a script, and it was just an actor the guy that they paid to say it. And what it was he pronounced the mathematician Euler's name Euler. And I'm like, anyone who really knows about Euler would know that his name is not pronounced Euler, right? Anyway.
That's offensive.
I
know all our listeners will agree.
Exactly. All right, so thanks for listening, everybody. We better be getting multiple emails this week. And we look forward to hearing from you. So, thanks for listening. I'm Alex.
I'm Alex.
And this has been Joel.